Welcome, councillors, and welcome to our gallery and media and officers, of course, to the ordinary meeting of the Wellington Shire Council on the 3rd of July. Please, members of the public and gallery should note that the Council records and publishes Council meetings via YouTube to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate time during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with the Council via the webcasting chat room should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors and councillors ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in the silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Please stand for the acknowledgement and prayer. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gunai people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire Council, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the true good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. Item A2, apologies, Mr CEO.
Yes, Mayor, we have apologies from Councillors Rossetti and Bye.
So noted. Thank you. Item A3, declaration of conflict of interest. There be no declarations. Item A4, confirmation of the minutes of previous council. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I'm happy to move that Council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting at the meeting held on the 19th of June 2018.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Ripper, is that motion opposed? The motion's not opposed. The motion is carried. Item A5, business arising from the previous meetings. We don't have any there. Item A6, there's no late items to accept. Item A7, no notice of motion. A8, A8.1, no outstanding petitions. Item A9, invited addresses, presentations and acknowledgements. I believe Councillor Ripper, you have an item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to make an acknowledgement for the steam train that steamed up from Melbourne to Sale on Saturday the 23rd of June. It was B707 was the number on the steam train, and it's operated by, it was called Operation Skyrail Excursion to Sale, which departed from Southern Cross at 7:30 in the morning. I want to just acknowledge my appreciation for the work that went into by volunteers from the steam rail group, and also out to all the shires along, and including, because it ended its tour and turned around and went back in the Wellington Shire, that the amount of people that were there to support, and families with young children, older people, and I believe in the 1960s that the Mayor and I was having a conversation before was the last time that a steam train came along our rails here going up to Bairnsdale. So it was wonderful for everyone. The Shire, we've got had a group of volunteers from the tourist information area downstairs. I witnessed one of the volunteers over 2 days packing 350 paper bags with various flyers for the tourism area of this area. And I travelled up and back on the train as a private entity, and sitting and speaking with the enthusiasts and listening on the way back from what they took away from Sale was just wonderful, and it was an absolutely great for everyone who was involved in the train coming here. And in fact, possibly, all things being equal, that train may come back to Sale on the long weekend in November. But I must stress, it's a possibility at this stage. Everything has to be equal. So I'd just like to acknowledge those volunteers and the train drivers for coming up, and all those who came around the station, down the road and everywhere. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ripper. Certainly got plenty of attention on the social media as well. Steam engine is always a great thing for the photographers. I'd also like to take this opportunity of acknowledgements to say that one of our general managers, Glenys Butler, for General Manager for Community and Culture, this is her last formal meeting here with the Wellington Shire after we determined group effort of 18 years, a significant term of your life and the lives of Wellington Shire that you've had a very positive impact on. So I'd just like to say you've had exceptional service to the community of Wellington, and in some organisations people come and go and they do their work, but some make a significant impact when they are there, and that certainly I feel you've made a significant impact to the community that you've worked in, not only for the community but for the tone and the feel of the workplace as well. So congratulations and thank you very much for your service. And just to mention, there will be a gathering between 5:30 and 7 this evening up in the foyer area here after the building closed to celebrate those years of service. So thank you very much. Moving on. Item A10, we don't have any questions on notice. Item B, Report of Delegates. I believe, Councillor Hall, you have some delegate reports. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This report covers 5 days of being in Canberra with the CEO. One of us behaved ourselves, the other one learnt. But it's in June every year there's the National General Assembly of Local Government from around Victoria, from around Australia, and most councils were represented in some way, shape or form, bringing together the issues from their states to get a national vote on local government, and then to take those issues up with the federal government to try and enact them as law. And so we'll see the result of that over the course of the next 2 or 3 years as the homework's done in Canberra. I don't know why they picked June for the National Assembly. The Sunday morning there it was -2 as we were going on our way to work, but the wind factor had it down to -8. And I'll tell you what, it was nice to come home and strike 0. But Madam Mayor, it was a pretty heavy workload, and the CEO and I had to split up to be able to cover all the bases. And with those, I'll whip through them as quickly as I can. On Sunday was the state of the Regents report, and I'd like to table that. So anybody who's got nothing to do but sit and read before they go to bed can give us a précis. I've done my homework, I've brought it. And there's also the Australian Local Government Yearbook, both pretty serious documents and both relating to local government, and I trust that they will be used by our officers to the best advantage. The theme was Australia's future, to make it local. There was this is on the Sunday at the regional, there was a heap of guest speakers, or keynote speakers as they were called, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of them. One was Sol Looselake, who was the opening keynote speaker, and everybody knows Sol Looselake. He's a noted economist, and treated with a great deal of respect in Australia because of his knowledge and his future thinking. And he pointed out that the inequality over the past 15 years in the distribution of wealth and income between the age groups, and this is reflected in the regions. There's a widening gap between income and wealth between capital regions and the rural regions. And this is caused by primarily a lack of opportunities for employment. Access to infrastructure is vital for the regions, and that includes the internet. Levels of education achievement is vital to achieve higher paid employment, and councils must grow and strengthen our education facilities. Catherine O'Ryan, who is the Executive Officer for Cities Leadership Institute, was a first-time speaker at the conference, and she was the second speaker of the day, and I think most of us agreed that the opening two speakers were the best two we'd had in 18 years. And so she had the 30 years of experience in developing growth strategies for business and government. She says we need smart leadership, the ability to change faster, and that leadership can enable change from traditional to horizontal. 9/10 of the population live in cities, and the regional centres generally are stagnant or declining. And she pointed out that 80% of everything we produce is produced on 0.2% of the land. She used a very good analogy on today's workforce, that they want personalisation in their daily lives. And she said, you get them, as her example, go in for a cup of coffee, double shot, low fat, soy milk, 1 sugar latte. And she said that's the way the world is going, personalisation. It's something that we may have to take deeper considerations in some of our dealings. The challenges that we are experiencing is the council culture shift, a shift in strategic approach, and the capability gap. And that means the link between schools, councils and private enterprise. And they need to work collaboratively. Yeah, well, anyway, I brought back the 2 pieces of paper, which I'm also going to table in relation to that working together. And the other speaker I'm just going to touch on Sunday is Dr. John McVie, Member of Parliament, who was the Minister for Regional Development. His main strength in his speech was that he wants to have greater direct communication between the federal government and local government, and to stop the state government siphoning off the funds as they come down the chain. And I took that comment on Tuesday when I went to talk to him about Cameron Sporting Complex. We'll deal with that in a minute. There were many other speakers on the day, and they just all pushed this working together as a catalyst for success. For those of you who know Professor Peter Brain, and who every year gave us 30 minutes of facts and figures, and his enthusiasm was probably the greatest to see from anybody, but at the end of the time, none of us knew exactly what he was trying to tell us, because he bamboozled us with facts and figures. Great man. Anyway, a different format this year, that he was part of a panel of 4, and the questions would come from the floor, and pointing him right down. And he didn't have a lot to say. There were a couple of others there who had the opportunity to talk more, but his knowledge did come out in a probably more easily understandable method for the delegates that were sitting around there. Monday night was the National Timber Council's meeting. The numbers attending were a little bit lower than had accepted, which was a disappointment, and this is put down to the fact that many councils did not send delegates to Canberra this year, and that includes 2 Gippsland councils. I chaired the meeting because I was the most senior bloke there on the committee, and it was quite an interactive meeting. The future strategic directions were the main topic of conversation, as also the National Timber Council's conference coming up in August. Monday and Tuesday, well, I spent them at Parliament House on behalf of the National Timber Councils, as well as Wellington Shire. We were granted interviews with 13 members of Parliament or their senior advisors. We struck a little bit of a bad situation the Parliament was sitting, and the appointments we made were with senior ministers or senior opposition shadow ministers. And of course, every time the bells rang, they charged out the officers and left us there as they had to go for a division. And with, I'll deal with that other one in a minute. But we were left with our senior advisors who, in the main, were knowledgeable and took our concerns back to the Minister, we hope, or we know because of a couple of letters that we received back supporting our requests. The interesting thing is that on the Monday, one of the members of our delegation from the NTCA had a watch on that counted all the steps that we went, and just in Parliament we had just over 12,000 steps as we went from House of Reps to Senate, down to the Ministerial Chambers, back up to the House of Reps. And so we were kept pretty much active, and I think we all enjoyed our cup of tea afterwards. But we had 5 ministers, 3 shadow ministers, 2 deputy chairs of committees, including Rural and Regional Affairs, the Select Committee in Regional Development and Decentralisation. Our goal was to attack $65,000 federal contribution to match the National Timber Councils and the CSIRO input into our transit study, which is to project timber harvesting, road usage, expected tonnage, and the transport to mills and ports over the next 20 to 25 years. CSIRO already have done that for the grains and dairy industries, and so we're hopeful that the Minister's going to announce on the 9th of August at the conference that the money will be there. So that'll be another win for local government. While on the round of appointments for the National Timber Councils, I took the opportunity to request funding for the Cameron Complex proposed redevelopment. Our officers here prepared 2 excellent documents to present. One, a multi-page cost estimate, used for detailed designs. It was with great pleasure that they were handed over to relevant parliamentarians. The ministers that we were able to talk to were the ones that were closely associated with the fund distribution, and including the Minister for Sport, Richard McKenzie, who made an appointment, was coming in to see us, and as she came to the door, was called into Parliament for question time because they wanted to be asked her some questions. And so she left her senior advisors, Rebecca and Lachlan, and Lachlan made the comment, they shouldn't be too hard on us this time. So I don't know, we didn't hear the questions. The result from that interview, we received a letter of acknowledgement on both issues that we raised. The sentiments, I suppose, expressed in the letter acknowledged the need for the Cameron Sporting Complex, and the verbal response is that if we don't get it this time, there will be a second round. And if that's the case, we've got to go back to Canberra. But we're up to the $3.5 million required to accomplish our plans for the Cameron Complex. And I'd like to suggest to the CEO that if we could use some media reports to acknowledge the reception that we got from those ministers and shadow ministers. They all like to see their name in the paper, and I'd like them to know that we appreciated the time, as well as we also tell the general public our reasons for going there and what we hope the end result will be. And that This is the quickest 27 minutes I've ever done. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Yeah, I don't think a Canberra trip in June is always on my calendar. I don't think so. No, very important work, and it's good to have that interface with the our federal government there. Moving on to item C.1. There's no Chief Executive Officer this meeting. Item C2.1, Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 12th June 2018 to 26th June 2018.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Marr. Is that motion opposed? The motion is not opposed. The motion is carried.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, this report sets out the meeting, and in particular the meeting of the 19th of June, setting out the attendees, both councillors and officers, and the matters and issues covered. You can read that for yourself, but this is an opportunity to acknowledge the depth and breadth of the support that councillors received from the officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Item C2.2, the Audit and Risk Committee minutes. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I'm pleased to move that Council receive and note the minutes in brief, attachment 1, and the confidential attachment at item F1.1, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the 28th of May 2018, and recommendation 2 as set out in the Council agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. Is that motion opposed? The motion is not opposed. The motion is carried. Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
thank you very much, Mayor. We had a very successful meeting on the 28th of May. I should note that Councillor Bai actually attended his first meeting as the alternate delegate for the Audit and Risk Committee, and I think he found it most interesting. It's a pity he's not here to make a comment today. I think probably one of the main pieces of work we did at the Audit and Risk Committee, obviously it covers many different issues relating to financial audit matters and risk and insurance matters for council, but we had quite a useful discussion with the external auditors. Mary Winter, the agent for the Vargo the Auditor General, I should say, and we had quite a useful discussion there about the issues that are going to be taken into account in this year's, or rather in last year's, audit of the council books. I mean, there were no particular issues that stand out. I think it's fair to say that we are in a fairly strong place, and that's due to the really good work of our officers in regard to the finances and risk management, Mayor, and also I think it's good that we have a strong Audit and Risk Committee. Obviously, we have 3: the independent chair, Peter Craighead, and two other independent members, as well as 2 council representatives on that committee. And it's fair to say that I think we've got a very strong, robust, I think is probably the word I'm looking for, committee, and all things are discussed quite freely and frankly in that meeting. The only final point I'd make, Mayor, was that I was put in the position of giving the summary at the end of the meeting. It was noted in the minutes that I gave a succinct feedback, but there was some debate over whether I was succinct enough. But I was quite pleased. I wanted to note that I've never been called concise and brief before in my life, Mayor, so it was a first for me. But I'm not sure I'm going to be asked to give feedback again at any future meeting in the foreseeable future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that brief summary. Moving on to item C3.1, the April monthly planning decisions. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between the 1st of April and 30th of April 2018.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. Is that motion opposed? The motion is not opposed. The motion is carried. Councillor Marr.
43 decisions have been made in over this period of time. However, it's interesting to see that applications received and the value of works are on a bit of a downward trend. However, I must commend the planners, because having decisions within the 60 days of receipt is still steady, which is a great job for any planning department to do. It's also nice to see that Port Albert has building and works on this report, which is reflective of the growth that is occurring in the township itself, as well as the rest of the coastal region. So we'll certainly look forward to seeing more of those works in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Marr. Moving on to item C3.2, proposed sale of surplus council land. Just before, I'll just check if there's anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this item. No? Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to move the Council resolve that all of the land described below is not required for council purposes, including restructure lot 185, consists of lots 2607, 2608, 2609 and 2610 of PS 56682. Restructure lot 226 consisting of lot 2767, 2768, 2757, 2758 of PS 56687. C. Restructure lot 227 consisting of lot 2769, 2770, 2755 and 2756 of PS 56687. D. Restructure lot 228 consisting of lots 2771, 772, 2753, 2754 of PS 56682. 2. Subject to the provisions of the Local Government Act of 1989, Section 189 and 223, including calling for submissions in relation to the proposed sale of land, Council advertises its intention to sell the restructured lots 185, 226, 227 and 228 or above the current market value on the open market. Council appoint a committee comprising, and I'll actually indicate who they are. They were Councillor McCubbin, Councillor Stevens and Councillor Crosley, plus an alternative representative, which will be Councillor Hall, plus an alternative representative, just put on the end of that, comma, Councillor Hall. Right. To form the proposed sale of surplus land committee that is established by Council under Section 223(1)(b)(1) of the Act to consider written submissions and to hear any person who is in written submission under Section 223 of the Act have requested they be heard in support of their submission. The committee will hear submissions on the 21st of August 2018 at 9 a.m. Subject to not receiving any submissions, Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to progress the sale, including executing necessary documents, and C, I'll take as read. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Stevens. Is that motion opposed? The motion's not opposed. The motion is carried. Councillor McCubbin.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Look, I want to be very clear about this. This has been a long-standing issue for Council and, of course, deals with the Wilmore and Randall case, which stretches back from the 1960s, and much has been said about that. I need to absolutely emphasise that this is actually land that has come into Council's, that was given up to Council, if you like, as part of a compensation package prior to 2003. So prior to 2003, there was a lot of confusion on the coast. People were able to, since 1986, were able to consolidate their land blocks or be compensated back to Council. This is the subject of the proposal today. So it's in regard to township allotments, essentially, within the broader Golden Beach township, which was determined prior to 2003. In 2003, there was a moratorium placed, at which Council then went through a long process of community consultation, ultimately planning decisions, conversations with state governments, compensation packages and so on. And I won't reiterate the many words that were spent over that time and still continue to be so. That is talking about a restructure allotments which are not part of this buyback. That's not part of this buyback. The Council's project, which was about consolidating those areas, allocating some to being not to be built up, if you like, and to other nodes around there. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about within the township itself. So basically, if you go into Golden Beach, you go to the hall, you turn right and you travel about 1 kilometre, you come to the weirdly called Waikiki Way, which has a number of the blocks alongside it. Now, I've spoken to some of the people on Waikiki Way, and right now they would like their roadway to be maintained by council, but there's very little residential development along that street. Whilst it looks quite developed within this map here, it's mostly just native bush. A couple of isolated houses which were able to take advantage of the consolidation prior to 2003, but mostly just native bush. And the roads themselves are a little more than tracks, and to be quite honest, council hasn't done a lot in terms of maintaining them, because they don't really correspond to council's program that you maintain roads if there's 2 or 3 residences on them and so on and so forth. It's quite sparsely constructed. Let's be clear about the nature of what we're doing today, and that is to begin a conversation with the local community about those allotments. Council have got 4 blocks which are connected together. It is possible and conceivable and allowable to get permits to place a residence on them. And the question, I guess, for the community is, should we do that? And so we've set up a committee of people who will be looking at members of the community giving us submissions as to what we should do with that land. If there's no objection to us, no objection to that, then council will move forward with a clear intent to sell that land to allow people to enjoy the amenity of Golden Beach. But again, stressing, we're talking within the township allotments themselves, a small distance away from the main heart of Golden Beach. We are not talking about the consolidated blocks and so on and so forth in the 90 Mile Beach subdivisions. We are not talking about that. That is a completely separate issue. In saying that, I'm very hopeful about this. I'd like to think that the community supports there's some development which is appropriate within those township blocks. And council has always said, and said at the time, that it is appropriate to develop in this area. When we went through the long process, it was about finding areas that were not appropriate for development. They're on a primary dune. It's part of the native bush of that area. But these indeed have already got scattered residences through them, and it would be appropriate for development, subject to the appropriate planning schemes, subject to the environmental protections and so on, particularly in regard to septics and so on. Thank you very much for that. I think that explains everything. We look forward to submissions. There's a date in there, I think it was in August, 21st of August, and I invite any member of the community who have concerns in regard to this issue, concerns whether council should be selling this land, or indeed supports council selling that land, then please put in a submission, and we in the subcommittee will do that, and again we'll present that back to the council for their decision to be had. And I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for that detailed explanation, Councillor McCubbin.
Sorry, it's a bit longer than I should have.
No, it's certainly clarified it. Thank you. General Manager Built Natural Environment, nothing there. SC4 and C5, also no reports there. No ID, no urgent business, which brings us to E, for the gallery and chat room. Any chat room comments? No there. This is the time now, if there's any members of the gallery who wish to address the council, they may do so. But just to say that it's not a Q&A, but you've got, if you wish to come to the podium there, if anybody wishes to speak. Yes? So, if, as I say, if, I don't know whether you've seen that area there, you've got 3 minutes to state your case. As I say, it's not a Q&A, but if there's any specific areas or if there's a particular complaint, there's another avenue, but we're open to your presentation.
Thank you. My name's Dave, Mayor, Councillors, Wellington staff members and member of the public.
Can I have your full name, Dave?
Patterson.
Yes. Thank you.
Like great Uncle Banjo. Myself and 2 other enthusiastic people care and look after the Montana campground, which is just north of Carmel, just north of Hayfield on the Lacola Road. Montana has been shut for 4 years and has recently reopened. The purpose of my visit today is just to congratulate the Wellington Shire on their staff, the way they manage things, the way they go about things, and their enthusiastic nature of which they do things. Just to give you a small snapshot of me, and it'll make it more relevant, I've been self-employed for 95% of my adult life. In that, I ran a business where I constantly risked my life in the pursuit of excellence for others for 21 years. I also managed a motorsport team both here in Australia and internationally at the same time, and have dealt with many departments, both government, non-government, organisations, and I've never come across a more enthusiastic, embracing group of people than the Wellington Shire staff, and they should be congratulated. Interestingly, when I stood up here, you said if there's a complaint, there's another avenue we can go down. I tried to contact David through the system, and I found it increasingly, I found it difficult to actually ring and lodge congratulations. Everyone said, let's go down the complaints path. We can send you a complaints form, but we haven't got a congratulations form.
We'll take that on board.
I think it needs to be taken on board. Councillor Moho, was it? Sorry. Before you were talking about building permits, and you said a 60-day turnaround. Some shires that I've worked with previously, it's been, if we've got anything under a 12-month turnaround, we've been fairly grateful. So a 60-day turnaround, again, is just outstanding. It's an outstanding thing, and you all do need to be congratulated. One thing I will touch on, which is not a complaint, but it's something that I would like the councillors to understand and look at, is I'm not sure whether you've embraced it yet or looking at it, the RV tourist plan that's going around. It's a great thing because it brings people to the area, but do we need to bribe people to the area, or should we entice them to the area? It basically, I have nothing against free camping or free camping facilities provided by shires at all. Around Australia, it's bringing up a couple of issues, and the Renmark Shire has recently closed one of their free camping areas due to conflicts with businesses and the fact that the Shire was seen to be going in competition with caravan parks. It doesn't affect me because I'm a destination. I'm not a go-through caravan park, so I'm in a different market. The way that it can be overcome is to limit, and I'm not sure what your plans are, limit the amount of free camping areas, but also limit the time people can stay there, but also put up signage. If you've liked staying in this area and like to stay longer, here is 3 caravan parks around you. This is a distance to the caravan parks, and have phone numbers there that they can bring up. The reason that I want you to have a look at it is because to reopen Montana, we spent an inordinate amount of money to provide a fire service on its own to protect patrons that are there if there happens to be a fire. Free camping areas, and it's not only free camping areas, not picking on the shires, but any area that's owned by the government is exempt from those fire regulations which were brought out in 2012. So there is a reason that other caravan parks can say, well, you don't have to comply, why should I? And for those, I guess for those people, the thing that I've learnt dealing with the government in many departments is that you can't fight regulations. The regulation's there, all you can do is come up with an alternate solution. The other thing that I would ask you to consider is never to close this forum, never to close allowing the public to come and have their say. Yes, we do have people that will stand up here and congratulate you. I'm guessing that most of the time people are standing up here doing the opposite. We have to learn to overcome. One of my slogans at my business is, I want your feedback because it's how I improve what I do for you. So having someone's feedback, whether it be good or negative, whether it be constant, whether it be repeated, we should find a system to work around that, but I think it's necessary, or otherwise we're working for a faceless customer. We're only working for the ones that want to complain, not the ones that want to congratulate you. So just congratulations. Well done, everyone. Thank you. Any questions? Come on, you've got to ask me a question. I drove all this way. It took me 5 days to get on to David. He rang me after he was away. And me and Carmel had a ripper chat. The only thing we didn't discuss was camp overcooking. But any questions? Come on, ask me. Hit me with a question.
We've actually got one from Yeah.
what steps we'll take in relation to the issues raised.
Yeah, I haven't got a big concern about it, but I just, dealing in the industry and seeing it all the way around Australia and the different viewpoints from people that use the free camps, and for those people that make a living out of having people camp there, I think it needs to be something that's fairly closely looked at.
Yep.
Thanks for your time, guys. Keep up the good work. The thing that I didn't put in, that I will now put in, from the moment I walked through the doors over there and walked to the front desk and asked the ladies a question, to the phone call that said that we had a permit and we could reopen our caravan park, everyone that I dealt with, as I've said, was outstanding, particularly Andrew Farhall, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and recently Vic Cassidy. Like, Vic Cassidy is the man, he needs a handshake. And so does Andrew, and so does every department within the Shire that I've dealt with. Absolutely sterling effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking that time. And as you say, we do get lots of comments, but we certainly remember and appreciate those that come in to give us the bouquet, not the brickbat. So thank you very much. We'll certainly take on those, I think, very valid and useful suggestions, certainly from your experience. But I'm very pleased that you've had a great experience with the Wellington Shire, and we'll certainly make sure that we pass on those congratulations to the individual
Already done.
officer. Terrific.
Already done.
Thank you. So thank you very much. If there are any other... Yes, if you would... Ron.
Yes, that's right. Hello, my name's Ron Darcy. I suppose the quickest way to say this is I'm your new neighbour. You may have noticed opposite the wedge, an office has been recoated a very bright and garish orange, and that's me. Maxima Group is a disability employment service. We're a not-for-profit, Australian owned, and I essentially just want to come over and introduce myself. I'll be working there as a consultant, and I'm really excited to be here. We're all local people. In the team here in Sale, we have Kelly, who's come on board, who lives in Longford. Myself, I'm slightly out of council, I'm sorry, I'm in Toongabbie, but I guess only 200 metres less local than our mayor. And our regional manager is based in Warwick, so we are very central here, and I encourage anyone to come across and chat to us. We have a very person-centred approach to what we do, and employment can be difficult in Gippsland as it is. Add a disability to that, and it can be near on impossible. We focus on working in not what we would call a barrier, but in a pothole. A barrier says that there's no way forward, and that's not what we're about. We spend a lot of time working with people and ensuring that they are ready in themselves as people, not just job ready. I encourage you, track us down, have a chat. We're here to serve.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks for coming. Well, I'm feeling the love here.
Put the guitar in.
No, it's lovely. It's really appreciated. Very much appreciated. If we have any other comments, I do have to ask you to leave the chamber because we have to go into closed session to deal with confidential items. So if we can have a motion to that effect, Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I'm pleased to move that the council be closed